Is it too little too late or exactly what the doctor ordered? The New York Jets have made a trade for Las Vegas Raiders star wide receiver Davante Adams. I'm Glenn Naughton with Jet Nation Radio and JetNation.com. Be sure to log into JetNation.com where you can register and become a part of what is the most active Jets message board on the web. The Jets have gone out. They made it happen. Listen, folks, let's not kid ourselves here. This deal would feel a whole lot different right now if the Jets would have found a way to pull off a win last night against the Bills. Dropping to 2-4 makes it sting quite a bit. Whether you want to talk about the missed field goals, the Garrett Wilson drop touchdown, the hold on Tyron Smith that cost him a touchdown, Mike Williams getting spun around and slipping and having his feet come out from under him, to have that final pass from Aaron Rodgers intercepted, just one mistake after another, the 10 penalties for 111 yards, whatever it was. Mostly disgusting game last night. The Jets could have won just like the week before and just like the week before that. Now they go out and get Davante Adams. The trade compensation is reportedly a third-round pick that could become a 2. I haven't seen any word yet on how much of Adams' salary, possibly all. Don't know how much of his salary that Woody Johnson and company will be paying. So, I mean, and again, that's only going to matter for salary cap reasons going into next year, but no one cares about that right this minute. They will obviously going into next year if things don't go well this season. Have not seen a tweet yet letting us know what the conditions of the deal are. I'm sure that will come out in time. But as it stands right now, Davante Adams reunited with his good friend Aaron Rodgers. Rodgers obviously wanted the move. Said this offseason at a golf tournament he'd love to play with Davante Adams again. Once Adams' name was, 2-3 weeks ago, when Antonio Pierce said that they had players making business decisions, and some people felt he was addressing that toward Adams and others. Immediately, we thought there might be a deal. The Jets, of course, were mentioned as a front runner right away. Didn't happen for a little bit. And it's a shame. Listen, we don't know. There's no way to prove any hypotheticals. But I think they win the last couple games, maybe the last few games, if you have Davante Adams. And look, I understand people with but can he block? Oh, can he run? Can he stop the run? We've seen it the last 3 weeks, folks. The Jets are a flawed team, but every team in the NFL has its flaws. And if they had been a little bit better on offense, they conceivably win all 3 of those games. If that's a touchdown ball to Davante Adams instead of Garrett Wilson, probably a catch. Davante doesn't drop many. You're playing the Denver Broncos can't move the football. All Denver does is score 1 touchdown. They win that game. You don't think Davante is going to add a chunk play here and there with Aaron Rodgers? So I feel like this team right now, as constructed with Davante, and if you get Reddick in the building, it would be the ultimate too little too late if this team still can't get it together. And they still, mentioning the flaws, mentioning the things that are wrong with this team right now. They should still be out talking to teams and trying to find out who has a big body in the middle that they're willing to move. Is Cincinnati willing to move Sheldon Rankins? Quentin Jefferson, I mentioned, a couple of former Jets there. Is Cleveland willing to move him? And do the Jets have interest? I would imagine they would, but we'll find out in the coming, again, days, weeks. Just curious to see what the performance incentives are with the Adams situation. Again, being a third-round pick that could become a 2 if it's tied to individual stuff, playing, individual stats, playing time, things like that. If he misses time, I have a feeling the hamstring injury is going to be a lot better in a hurry, but he's not a spring chicken. So, if he misses significant time, will it then be a third? We don't know yet if it's playing time incentives, performance incentives. Could be both. Could be, if he averages 65, 70 yards a game, and plays 70% of snaps, 60%, whatever it may be. But the feeling I get early on, again, the trade just went down, but this is another reason. There are so many. But another reason why the forums at Jet Nation are great is because when something like this goes down, you can hop on and you're instantly getting like page after page after page of Jet fan reaction and getting a feel for where people are. And I think a fair number of people are in the, okay, that's great. Probably should have done this a week or two ago camp. Diana Rossini says they're finalizing a trade. Yeah, nothing. I'm just looking here. I'm scrolling to see if anyone tweets out the conditions of the deal while we're live, and we'll share that. I have a feeling the Jets, and it would be weird if the Jets picked up all of Davante's salary, because it's sure they've every step of the way they've been doing what they could to avoid spending more. And this isn't calling Woody cheap. I think they're just, I genuinely believe Woody is seriously considering tearing it all down this offseason, or at least leaving open that possibility if things collapse, which they have. You're 2-4. You know, we can be and should be aggravated at what they've done, but you still got 11 football games left. Josina Anderson says Antonio Pierce told a source that he feels moving on from Davante Adams was the best move for both sides, given that, quote, trust was impacted to a degree. But he wishes Adams well. Well, of course he does. I mean, what's he going to say publicly? I hope he never catches another pass. So he's a Jet, folks. And I think the general consensus among fans is like, okay, that's fine. You know, we're 2-4. People are worried about the run defense. People are worried about the pass pro. All justifiable. I mean, Tyron Smith, when do we have this conversation? You know, I talked about it last night on the show. Do you just say, look, we drafted Olu Fashanu, and Ryan hops in. First comment, Glenn, the O-line's a mess. Tyron Smith, as I'm saying it. D-line is a shell of itself. Now the secondary is decimated with injuries. I'm excited about Adams, but this team has major issues, including kicker. All true, Ryan, all true. And again, I think that's part of the reason why this move isn't quite as exciting. Not only are you 2-4, but your left tackle is playing horribly. Did a really nice job last year for Dallas. Year one with the Jets, he's a disaster. Do you go to Olu Fashanu and say, listen, Tyron, no disrespect, but if we're going to get this level of play out of our tackle, it may as well be a young guy who's on the way up and not an older guy who's on the way down. Secondary decimated with injuries. Well, we'll see. I haven't seen anything on the Clark thing. I don't know how long he's out. Reed's got a groin that could, you know, we don't know. We have no time frame on that. That could be a couple weeks. And the secondary, you have some depth there. They've been okay when they've played Eccles. That's the, one upside this week in playing the Steelers is that Justin Fields is pretty erratic. So it's not like you're facing a pinpoint passer who you've got to have, all hands on deck in the secondary. You've basically a guy like Eccles paired with Sauce, and especially if Carter comes back, they should be able to lock down Pittsburgh's passing game. And then you have New England the week after that. So, look, I'm not making any predictions, but, I said this at the beginning of the season. I said this during the preseason. And then Dan Leberfeld of Jets Confidential said the same thing yesterday, and he's so right that, and he because of course the Jets played Monday, and what Dan Leberfeld tweeted out was that when you watch a team you don't cover, like when you spend the day watching football games and it's all teams you don't cover, you realize they've all got warts. Every team has issues. Every team has things they're trying to make up for. Every team has something they don't do well, or they don't do as well as they would like. In the case of the Jets, they're not stopping the run well enough, and they're not protecting the quarterback well enough. So can you, does a swap help? Do you say to Tyron Smith, look, man, we got to go to Olu. You're not getting it done. As I mentioned last night, and Dylan Terraman, I told you, he tweeted out or he messaged us. Do you bring in Bakhtiari and give him a look? I get that he's injury prone, but he's reportedly able to play right now. Hell, if you brought him in and he gave you 5 games, but he'd have to be willing to come in for pennies. Is he willing to? I mean, Jesus, at that point, Rodgers, Adams, Bakhtiari, Lazard. I mean, really, talk about Green Bay East. Let's see what else we got here. Joe the Jet says Davante Adams is dry glue trying to fix a broken bridge. Yes and no. I'm not going to push back on people who aren't excited about this because honestly, I'm not doing backflips, but the question I ask myself is, if Davante Adams were a Jet a month ago, what's the Jets' record right now? And I think that you can easily make a case they win all 3 of these games they've lost. Definitely 2. So he doesn't fix everything, but no, this is my point, and this is what Dan Leberfeld was saying. No team out there has perfection at every spot. Every team has holes, warts. There are teams that would kill for this Jets secondary. The pass rush, is it inconsistent? Yes, but they do make plays. They do make some plays. You bring in Haason Reddick, now what? I mean, if Reddick gets in the building and plays anywhere near what he's capable of playing, yeah, okay, the Jets aren't doing a great job of stopping the run, but no one's going to be able to pass with them with any consistency. Yes, they'll give up some plays, they'll give up some touchdowns, but they're going to be a much, much better football team defensively. And there were stretches last night, not many, but there were times where the Jets held up against the run. They got some big stops against the run to force some punts, to force some field goals. Because believe me, the way Buffalo was running it last night when they got in the red zone early on, I just thought to myself, well, just keep running it because the Jets ain't going to stop you. Run it right down their throats, right into the end zone. And a few times they didn't. So is the run defense bad? Yes. Does this mean the Jets are going to give up 5 rushing touchdowns every week and 300 yards on the ground? Let's be realistic. They have to get better. The personnel has to get better. I don't know. I don't think Joe Douglas has 5 trades in his hat, but you got Davante. Can you make one more move to bring in a DT and get, excuse me, and then get Reddick in the building? Because listen, for as good as Will McDonald has been, getting to the quarterback, got a 7 sack last night. Good job for him. He's not been that great. He's not been great against the run. He's been quite bad at times. He's made some plays. He's, I guess you could say, inconsistent. Definitely not a dominant player against the run. He's not your first choice, basically. Michael Clemens, I'll tell you what. I'm at the point now where I would say, let's just start Eric Watts, Braden McGregor, or get Haason Reddick back in the building. Haason's your starter, and then maybe you keep Michael Clemens if you're gonna try to use him the way you did in what was it last year. See if he can play a little bit inside and give you as an off the bench depth piece. Fine on the interior. You can live with that, but as a starting every down edge guy, that needs to be over. And Ryan just hopped in with a comment on Clemens. I don't know if I said that before or after. Listen, Huff is, I mean, with Huff, it might be system. It might be, I got paid. I'm good. Guy's got a half a sack. In 6 games, 5-6 games, he's got a half a sack. So it looks like Huff, unless you bring him back here and see what he does, you don't know if it's the way they're. I mean, I find it almost impossible to believe that the Philadelphia Eagles look at Bryce Huff's body of work and what he did, how he was used to get to the quarterback, and they say, okay, we're never going to ask him to do that ever again. We're going to run him, head up against offensive tackles all day. I don't think that's happening. I think Bryce Huff is being put in some positions to succeed, and he's not. So again, did he get paid and just put his feet up? That's something we won't know. Mike says terrible trade. We'll know in time, Mike. It might be if this team just keeps floundering and you just gave up a second, third round pick, then it is absolutely a terrible trade. Tony, the GM, says it's $11 million this year, 36 non-guaranteed for 2025. Adams will want a new contract with guarantee. He can want it. Maybe he's going to hold out too. He's going to join Haason Reddick until he gets a multi-year deal. Phil Adams says, what's the Keith Carter effect on the O-line? Is it the reason the drop-off for Tyron Smith? That's a question I asked last night, Phil. And I asked Jets fans, and I said it on Twitter. I said it on the forums at Jet Nation. I said, name me the player, the veteran player. Rookies, like, you don't know what you're getting. They'll play at a certain level, and they're adjusting to the league, so it's a little bit different. But how many veteran players have come in here under Keith Carter and got noticeably better? And how many players have left Keith Carter and gone elsewhere and gotten noticeably worse? I don't think that happens. I think everyone who comes here either stays the same or gets worse, and everyone who leaves gets better. Well, let's be fair. I don't know what Tomlinson's doing this year, but we know Laken Tomlinson, Pro Bowler with the 49ers, comes to the Jets. Just terrible. Looked like he didn't belong in the league. Tyron Smith last year. He's already given up more sacks this year than he did all of last year. And when he played in 13, 14, 15 games, something like that. So Tyron Smith just looks like a shell of himself. Elijah Vera Tucker looks inconsistent. Good at times, not so good at others. Where he probably looked better as a rookie than he does now. Simpson, as I said, Simpson's a tough one to say because of the fact that a lot of his issues last year were tied to penalties, which we're not seeing this year. But, and I've said this at the time, I said it last night, when you've got Lamar Jackson behind you running around all over the place and you don't know where he is at any given time, there are going to be some holds and there are going to be some issues. When I did go back, I'm not sugarcoating it. I went back and watched a handful of his penalties last year, and I didn't see a lot of that, but I didn't look up all of his. I didn't watch. I think he had 11. I think I looked at like 3 or 4, and none of them were because of Lamar Jackson running around. And I was like, well, this could be an issue, and it hasn't been. So that's a whole different thing. But like I said, the point remains. Name me the veteran who got here and improved, noticeably. This guy was 3% better. I mean, we're a guy you look at and say, playing for Keith Carter has really helped this guy's career. How many guys can you say that about? Versus leaving Keith Carter has helped this guy's career. I feel like that's the more common thread. Like I said, and I said last night, Morgan Moses is the exception. I mean, again, he's always been who he's been, no matter where he's been. So Keith Carter, up to this point, knock on wood, has not appeared to have had a negative effect on Morgan Moses. Tony, the GM, says the Jets have $7 million in cap space. That could be the case. Again, they may look to move money around if it means getting Davante in here. One thing for sure, and Ryan hits the nail on the head, Adams is getting the ball in the red zone. You ain't kidding. You can't have this keep stalling at the in the red zone. JFM, Clowney, these are players we should be pursuing. Mike, JFM's a sore spot for me. I hated that trade. I've been a big JFM guy, from year one when he pardon me, got a rabid dog here in the study. JFM is a guy who, let's see, was a very good Jet for a long time, played the interior, played the exterior, got to the quarterback, stopped the run. He did it all. And the Jets gave him away for nothing. That was a dumb deal. I said it at the time. Listen, to everyone who said, I'm a Joe Douglas stan and I give him a pass for everything. Joe Douglas made a lot of dumb moves. And that was one of them. I said it at the time. I'll say it now. As with every GM, there have been some serious mistakes. Mike, we can't protect the QB, can't stop the run, but we're trading for a passes prime wide receiver. Well, again, Mike, the thing is, we can say what we want about being able to protect the QB, but that will get better as the run game gets better, which it did last night. And yes, Rodgers got sacked a couple of times, but he had more time to throw than he had in a couple of previous weeks. So as your O-line is building some chemistry, finally getting some reps together, finally moving the ball. Breece Hall said there was no difference in the play calling. He said, look, we're calling the same stuff. We finally had a game where we got it all together. In terms of him going over 100 on the ground, 118, I think he had something like that. So Breece is like, there's no difference in the O-line. There's no difference in play calling. That we're calling the same plays. But again, some of it is about how you're setting stuff up, is so much as the play call itself. But protecting the QB wasn't perfect last night, but it was better. Adding Davante will make it even that much better, and giving Rodgers a familiar target that he's comfortable with, that he trusts, who will be in the right spot at the right time. Jacob says, Jets are so bad, I got a little to no excitement after getting Adams. Again, Jacob, that's kind of where I am. Someone sent me the news, and I went, all right, let's search this and make sure it's legit. You search the old Twitter, Ian Rappaport, boom, pops up. Okay. All right. 2-4. Win a couple games and everybody get excited again. Go out and beat one of the best defenses in the NFL this week. Go beat the Steelers on prime time. And knowing you've got the New England Patriots up after that, I think fans will get a little bit excited again. They beat a contender. Look what a difference that made. But it's not. You're not going to go out. I mean, well, it's going to be awfully difficult to go out and run for 100 on the Steelers. And maybe I'm wrong, but I thought I looked at their numbers a couple weeks ago and they were sort of at an elite level where it's hard to envision the Jets, but we'll see. Will Adams be fine? His hamstring. Come on, Phil. His hamstring is fine. He probably got up and sprinted to the whatever it is he drives when he heard about the deal, and drove himself to the airport. Said, "No thanks, I got this." He'll be fine. The hamstring is, I'm sure, has come along considerably in the last 20 to 25 minutes. When do we bench Tyron, put on Olu? Well, that's, again, Jacob, I said that a few minutes ago, and that's what we're going to find out. It's a really good question because, as I said, the way I put it is if this is the level of play you're going to get out of your left tackle, you may as well go with a guy who's ascending, who you hope is ascending, versus a guy who is on the decline. Get Olu those reps and let Tyron Smith be your backup. This Tyron Smith is looking an awful lot like the Ryan Khalil situation, but at least in this spot, you've got an Olu to go to. Ryan Khalil was brought in because the Jets had nobody, and they weren't going to draft a center in the first round. They didn't like Jonathan Harrison, who I thought was a nice enough backup. I didn't think Jonathan Harrison was terrible. But Joe Douglas obviously didn't think he was good enough to be an everyday starter for a full season. And I don't think anyone ever did. I don't think Harrison was ever a regular starter for more than a handful of games. I don't think he was ever anyone's plan A to start for a season. But, Khalil, that was different because he was retired. So I see the difference there. But I mean, in terms of you're bringing in a guy to solidify a position who you're expecting him to be able to because of his track record, and he comes in and just gets steamrolled every time he steps on the field. And that's been the case with Tyron Smith. And it's frustrating because, since getting here, you do get the feeling, he comes across as a pro, comes across as a guy who, knows how to handle himself. With the media, knows how to prepare, and you just have high expectations for a guy like this, and you think, all right, even if he takes a step backwards, he'll still be okay. He's worse than Mekhi Becton right now. And I don't mean the Mekhi Becton playing guard for the Eagles right now. I mean the Mekhi Becton who played tackle for the Jets last year. Jacob just says he looks worse than Dwayne Brown. He looks worse than anybody. There's nobody the Jets have had at left tackle in the last 3 or 4 years who look worse than what Tyron Smith does right now, which, again, I get that he's a year older, but he wasn't a complete disaster last season. Let's see. Here we go. Update on the Haason Reddick situation. This from Aaron Rodgers' best buddy, Diana Rossini. The Jets have given Haason Reddick and his reps a short window to seek a trade, per sources. His new representation, Drew Rosenhaus, has been reaching out to teams over the last 12 hours to gauge interest. So there is some breaking news for you. The Jets are amicable. They're willing. We've got a new story to talk about now. That's big. And I actually wondered if the Jets were going to work this out to get both guys in, or if getting Adams, what that would do cap-wise. As someone mentioned a little bit ago, they have $7 million in cap. I think that was who was it? Somebody, Tony, the GM. I knew he said the GM. Yeah. So as Tony mentioned, and as I said, are you going to move money around? How much money do you have to move around? Obviously, the Jets aren't giving them an infinite amount of time to seek out a trade. If they're giving them a short window, clearly there's also a, hey, let's keep him here option. I said it last night. I said it the instant, you hate to see that Hutchinson injury, but I tweeted right away, Reddick to the Lions, makes sense. Fills a desperate need for a contender. And I've been saying every single time someone has said to me, trade Reddick. I keep saying you can't trade him. Nobody wants him. With the caveat, the only way you're going to trade Haason Reddick is if you find a contender who loses an edge rusher who believes that Reddick could be a difference maker in them trying to get to the postseason or the Super Bowl. And lo and behold, that was the issue with the Lions. They lost him, and now Reddick is given permission by the Jets to seek a trade. So, big story there. We'll see how it unfolds in the coming. We don't know how short the window is. Might be a day, might be 2 days. But we will keep you posted here. We will go live if anything else happens, if any other news breaks. But that'll wrap this one up. Thanks for tuning in, Jets fans. Have a good one. And welcome New York, Davante Adams. Look, little too late maybe, but we can be nice to the guy. You can be excited. He's going to score some touchdowns. So welcome to the Jets, Davante Adams, and possibly take care, Haason Reddick.